Audio Jungle.
Oh yeah! What do you get when you put four of the most opinionated grown-ass single men on one show? You get the Middle-Aged Still Single podcast! Let's meet the crew!
Audio Jungle.
Mitchell! Nasir!
Audio Jungle.
Nemo! Big Rob! Let's get it! Hey, this is Big Rob. If you like this content, and I know that you do, please hit like or subscribe. Join the movement. Middle-Aged Still Single. Sunday, once again, we are back. Middle-Aged Still Single, the podcast. Have all three of the gentlemen with me today. Today we have a more serious, more relevant topic than kind of what we've been talking about recently here. We're going to talk about critical race theory today. There's a lot of I guess, misinterpretations about it, and we're going to try to get that cleared up today for you. Nas, this is kind of in Nas's wheelhouse as a lawyer. This is, like I said, this is one of his specialties. So, Nas, let's go ahead and take it away, brother. Tell us about critical race theory.
Critical race theory is in the news quite a bit right now. Politicians have gotten their hands on it. The left and the right are debating it, and I think there's really not a debate. The debate is not what they should be having, and how they're going about it. But we're going to do a quick breakdown of what it is. Okay, critical race theory comes out of critical legal studies. The people who actually coined the phrase and who began the process of bringing this to the public attention are attorneys who were talking about these ideas in their law classes. And it began when they started saying that the law has historically supported the division among the races. And then it became critical race theory after the legal departments opened it up to the social science departments. And I'm just going to give you guys a quick definition. Critical race theory is the critique of how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuates a racial caste system that relegates people of color to the bottom tiers. Now, that when they're talking about race in this context, they're also including gender identities. They're also including people from different nationalities. It's not just black and white. And so now the reason why critical race theory is controversial is because the politicians now think that critical race theory is a tool that the left is using to try to put down the United States history. And really that's not what it is. Critical race theory is designed to remind us that there is a part of our history where we did where the government allowed institutionalized differences among people. And that's what critical race theory is really about. And I just think it's an important discussion that we need to have. And then I'll just open it up to the guys to have a discussion about it. If you guys have thought about anything about it or what your opinion is about what I just said.
Let me go ahead and start, Mitch. Go ahead, Mitch. Go ahead.
Okay, Rob.
So,
all right. Go ahead, Rob.
So
You.
we, as far as what I've heard about it, the problem is that they don't want critical race theory taught in schools, right? Is that the big protest here? They don't want, I guess the big thing is about villainizing or making white kids feel guilty about something that happened, hundreds of years ago, or make them feel bad about being white. As far as what I'm concerned is, they need to teach the truth, like what really happened. All right, and I think as long as we stick to that, as long as we stick to the truth and not just the part of the history that you want to tell us that makes us feel like the great country that they say that we are, but the whole truth. All right. And I think as long as we keep that, I think we're okay. I feel like the right side, the conservatives are trying to keep it out of the schools because it doesn't paint it doesn't paint our country in a very good light. We have like the myths and the legends of our current history. If you really shine a light on it, they don't look so good. All right, like the people that we thought were great leaders and great men and great women. If you really shine the light and you really focus on the truth of what was really going on, I think that would change. It would change the way we think about them. And I think people are not really ready to give up their heroes and legends. All right, and they're not ready to give up the idea that this is the greatest country ever, and it's been great since the very beginning. Especially for a lot of people, it hasn't been great since the beginning. So that's my opinion. I'm about the truth. Whatever the truth is, I'm saying teach that in school. That's what we should do. It's my opinion. Mitch?
So
Absolute total agreement. CRT, critical race theory, absolutely needs to be taught in schools. But therein lies the problem, because it's plagued with gross exaggerations on both sides, because they're weaponizing it to try and make the other side seem less attractive. And the truth of the matter is, like what you said, Rob, was that it's not a proud history. I still think we're a great country. I don't think our history is fantastic. But if you go to the history anywhere, in any country, it's ugly. I think we're all evolving, which is really strange to say in 2022, but we're still evolving in terms of treating people equally. I mean, we're still trafficking people in the world today in 2022. So I agree that something that Nas said earlier is that it's not just black and white. I think the fears from the opponents is that it brands all whites as oppressors, and it blends all black and minorities as oppressed victims. And the word there that I want everyone to clue into is all. It's not what it's about. It's not blaming all white people. It's not blaming the people today of what happened 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. And the way I see it is, the analogy I want to use is nuclear negotiations. When there's a disarmament, is it one president and one president talking about it, getting it done? No. There's 20 people on either side discussing it, and they're all discussing aspects of that problem. And then it all comes together. And I think what we need is not Congress, because they clearly can't get anything done, but we need a team who, from one narrative, like Rob was saying, the right is trying to keep it out of schools because it paints America poorly, and the left is saying, "Hey, let's open our eyes to it. Let's hit this head on. Let's make America great by telling the truth." I think we need to get people together in a big room with 20 sociologists and professors, and to hash out how it's going to be taught, so that you don't get a rogue teacher teaching a narrative. You teach it as it is, just straightforward, in your face. Facts are facts, right? And that way, you don't get a rogue conservative or a rogue liberal teacher who tries to stretch it out to more than it really is. I was doing my research on it, and I found a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., and it really hit me today. It says, individuals should be viewed by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. And I can't believe that we haven't learned that by 2022. But I think there's hope. I think us talking about it and showing other people that there are subjects out there, as long as it's not an emotional, you don't take it emotionally, you just take it as fact. We have an ugly history in this country. Okay, but that's not who we are today. So let's move forward by facing the facts and teaching about it. But burying it and keeping it out of school is not the answer. So Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
I'll follow up on that. I really don't have a lot of information. Like, I'm from Africa, so coming here, I mean, I went to high school in America, and I was taught the American history. Is that part of, I mean, I was taught the slavery and the white oppression and all those things. Is that what you guys are talking about, the truth, or is this something different? Am I just looking at it differently?
Part of a part of what critical race theory wants to do is tell the complete story of slavery.
Okay.
But the right does not want the complete story of slavery to be
Okay.
taught. He wants his story. And when I say his, I mean the people on the right who are wanting to keep this information out of schools.
Okay.
The schools are when you hold out something, like some people will use something to galvanize each other, right? To galvanize their side. So they're using their children, because now you got all these women out here talking about, you're not going to teach my kid that, but they don't even know what that is, because the right is very good. The right is very good at galvanizing their side to idiocy, even if there's no truth to it, right? And so that's kind of what the left is fighting against, the right turning this into a history that wants to, turning this into something that makes history worse than what it actually is, when it's not. It wants to talk about history as it really was. You have to think about it. This is something that the right has not thought about. What have we been teaching children since 1900 in the United States? We have not been teaching the black children, the white children, even Jewish children, the real history of how their people were treated in this country. And now the people that are the people who are espousing critical race theory are saying it's time for us to start talking about this so we can heal. I do agree with Mitch on something. We cannot have the left going too far. And I think what happened, Derek Bell is one of the early proponents of CRT. He's a law professor and a legal scholar. And when he was talking about it, it wasn't as vitriolic as when Professor Kimberly Crenshaw at UCLA got a hold to it, and she added the feminist slant to it. When you add feminism to any type of ideology, it's going to go way too far to one direction. And that's what's happened. I think she's a great scholar, but I think when you mix somebody who's also trying to change the dynamic of how people think about men, when that person is now talking about adding that kind of slant to critical race theory, then you get people trying to resist it like they are doing it right now, because they're not just resisting the teaching of history, they're resisting a movement that they see as problematic. And that's why it's hard to have politicians involved in really serious questions like this.
So I'm going to jump in right quick.
Go ahead, Nemo.
It's probably going to sound a little. Go ahead, Mitch. Do you have something? Go ahead.
Oh no, you'd already gotten a good start. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just speak from my point of view, like coming into this country. Okay, so I took history class, and that's how I was able to find out about, black slavery, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. So, you guys talk about not being in school or not being taught, but that's how, coming to this country, that's how I found out about slavery and things like that. So I'm not quite understanding. You guys say it's not in the education system, but here, that's what I learned when I got here. So I was able to learn about the black history and things like that. Am I just missing something, or is it not enough truth?
Yes, you're missing a lot.
Okay.
It's a really
Let me say
interesting
this real
point,
quick,
Nemo,
Mitch.
because go ahead, Nas.
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop talking. Go ahead.
Oh, Nemo, real quick. The history books that I read in the 70s and early 80s are going to be different than the history books you read in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's really interesting to go back now at my age and read what some of the kids are reading now and how the history books have changed, because there was so much that was watered down or left out completely in the 70s that you can find now. And probably due to the advent of the internet, which helps a lot. But they painted history in the 70s as how far we've come. And we did touch upon slavery, and we did touch upon the Civil War, and slavery was bad. But what it didn't touch upon is that the theory today that we're talking about, it's actually, we're discussing that racism is embedded in the laws and the regulations and the rules that are embedded in our society today. They didn't talk about that in the 70s. They didn't talk about that in the 60s. And a lot of those laws were made in those times and before that. And so that's what they're trying to get focused now. And like the guys have said, the right side is just not wanting it to come out. And the left side is weaponizing it instead of just coming at it head on and saying what it is. I just wish we can get everyone on the same side as to wanting to solve the problem instead of trying to be right and one person wrong or one side wrong and going for votes.
Yeah, Mitch is
Guys?
right, Nemo, and I'll add to that. I'm going to add to that, Nemo. Like Martin Luther King, he's good for the books because he had a white Anglo-Saxon mannerism. Okay, they pitted Malcolm and Martin against each other when Malcolm was actually the better person. Not person, but he lived his life was more honest across the board. I mean, he lived what he taught. Right? King is a man. Don't take anything away from him. But he was the kind of black that they wanted out front. But let me ask you something, Nemo. Did you ever read about Frederick Douglass in your school books? Did you ever read about Medgar Evers, Adam Clayton Powell, Stokely Carmichael? Absolutely not. All of those people have played a very important role in American history and development. But they're not going to tell you that because those individuals would be considered toxic for the public to get a hold of because they feel like they would incite riots, right? There's this thought that if we galvanize people, you have to think about it. Think about all the black leaders, not even just black ones. Let's just say the leaders who were on the liberal side of the fence, right? They were all murdered because the FBI said we do not need a messiah to galvanize the people. This is written down. You can look in the history. You can't look in history books because they didn't put it in there. The history books did not tell you that the FBI was behind the murder of Malcolm X. The history books did not tell you that the black codes, how definitely devastating they were. They're not telling you about redlining, how they put the Jews, the early Jewish people, the black people of today, the Spanish people, the Chinese, they put these people in certain districts. None of that is in our history books. You get to find those things later, but they're not taught to children. And so this is the argument.
So let me get. You just said something about the FBI being, is that a conspiracy theory about as far as being part of the murder of Malcolm X, or is that a fact, or just something I can find online?
It's a fact. It's a fact.
Okay.
It's a fact. It's in FBI documents.
Okay.
The killing of what's the young brother with the Black Panthers?
Huey
He was only 21. No, not Huey. He was under Huey. They just did a movie about him. Gosh, I can't remember his name right now. But the FBI had him murdered. He was set up by an FBI informant. The guy drugged him, and then he told the FBI where he was, and they went in there and they murdered him. Local police went in there and murdered him on behalf of the FBI. No, this is all common knowledge now. What I'm saying is history, they only want to show the history that they want us to see. Critical race theory is saying, no, let's look at the history critically. Let's look at it from the perspective of everyone. And let's heal. If we keep lying to ourselves, people are going to continue to treat each other as outsiders. You know, nobody talks about the internment
There's never going to
camps
be civility.
that the Japanese were in the 40s, right? Did you know about the hundreds of black men that were intentionally given syphilis? That's not in the history books, and that's not even that far away. That was like in the 40s and 50s, I think. So critical race theory says, let's talk about these things. Let's stop pretending our history was perfect. It's not perfect, but nothing is perfect.
Okay, so
But if we come together to fix those things, we can have a more perfect union.
so this or the so you like so well you and Mitch, I think you guys on both on the same side right now. So you like this information to be educational, to be in the schools, correct? Is that okay?
Yes.
So
Yes, and I agree with Mitch that it shouldn't be hijacked by either side.
okay. So my question is,
Yeah,
what
that's
good
why I
is it
feel
going to
very
be
strongly
putting it in
about
the school
putting,
right now as we
40 people
speak?
together, 20 on one
What
side, 20 on
good
the
is it
other,
gonna
and just tell
do?
them,
Is it
make it
gonna-
happen. Let's treat this like a nuclear negotiation and get this thing done. I think the how to teach it is really the issue, not whether we should or not. I think everyone knows, well, everyone with common sense knows that it should absolutely be taught in schools. It's how and at what age should we start, right? But I think how is the biggest hurdle. But we've got to get in the face of the American public. These things need to come out, and we can't hide behind 50 years of classified documents. You can't have something go on that we don't want the public to hear and then close it up for 50 years and then just declassify the documents, because after 50 years, no one cares. They shrug their shoulders. It's like, no, I want to hear about it now. Let's, something happens. I mean, I don't want to get into this, but the Russian dossier, the Hunter's laptop, that kind of thing, that stuff gets tucked away and you don't hear about it for 15 years. When 15 years later, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter anymore, right? So this stuff has been locked away for years, and it needs to be just knocked in your face. So, yeah, I think the how is really important, and how to break it up, because there's so much to it. How to break it up per year and what year you should start. I mean, how mature are our children nowadays? I think our children are far more immature than other cultures at 10 years old, 12 years old. Like, in terms of today's kids, not 50, 60 years ago, but yeah, we've got to play to the maturity of our children today, and then give them a little bit every year through high school, elementary school through high school.
Okay, I'll just follow up on that, Mitch. I completely understand your point of view, where you're coming from.
Rob?
But my question is what good is it going to do right now as we speak, putting this stuff, making it educational? Will it cause more resentment, or do you think it's going to help us heal better? Personally, I think it's going to cause more resentment.
You mean more resentment than we already have, man?
Yes, probably.
Like the longer you let stuff fester, the worse it's going to be when it comes out, in my opinion. All right. We're right now where we are at a battle where the right is trying to take over again. Like the new generation of youth is heading more towards the left side, the liberal side. I think Obama was really instrumental in moving us more towards that direction. And as they start to lose, they've lost some states this year that they never lose, or at the last election that they never lose. And so they're looking for an issue to try to pull that back a little bit, right? So let me say one of the worst things that I heard while I'm doing my research for this was Ted Cruz. First of all, I think Ted Cruz is an asshole from the very beginning. All right. And he was screaming at one of his last conservative conventions or whatever it was. It was a big meeting. And he's talking about the people who are trying to teach critical race theory. All right. Which is the truth, which is not something made up. Right. If you just put the facts out there, the liberals don't have to interpret. You just put the facts out there. All right. What he was saying is those people who are trying to teach that in schools or put that into schools, teach the truth, are as racist as the Ku Klux Klan. That's the spin he put on that. And let me tell you what and another thing that really made me kind of smirk. In a lot of their conservative publications, slavery was defined as an immigrant workforce. An immigrant workforce. That's slavery. That is the ultimate in spin control. That's what we want to call slaves.
And
the immigrant workforce.
Nemo, that's why
you have to have it.
That's why you got to have it. Here's another reason why you got to have it, Nemo. It's not going to create any more resentment because children are smarter than they used to be in a sense. I'm not disagreeing with Mitch on some things, but children have more access to information than they ever have in their life. And they can tell when somebody is pulling their leg. What Ted Cruz is doing is just like everybody else on the right. They're trying to use this as a hammer to galvanize their people so they can win the majority again. That's it. And these people, just like they did when they put Donald Trump in office, are going to be the people that suffer behind it because they're not getting told the truth. Telling people what really happened to the Japanese people who were put into internment camps, the Koreans and the Chinese who were put into the same internment camps because they didn't care what kind of Asian they were. They put them in there. Having people know that history is not going to create any more resentment. It's going to make people who believe the lies take a step back. I'll give you a personal example. In my time in the Marine Corps, one of my best friends was a white guy from Tennessee. Came from a racist family. He admitted it. But he said he was never in his heart felt like they felt. But he lived in that community. He learned all those things. When he got to the Marine Corps and he met black men, he was shocked that we weren't what they taught him. This is why we have to teach the truth. Because when he got there, he became friends with me. This man cried on my shoulder because he was like, man, I am so sorry for the things that my family said. And let me tell you something else. I said, yo, man, let's go back to Tennessee and let them meet me and maybe they'll change their minds too. You know what this man said? They will kill you before you leave the village. Because they believe it. They believe he said, man, I'd never met a black person until I went down to the place to come to Marine Corps. In fact, I didn't even know blacks could join the Marine Corps.
How old was he at that point?
21.
Wow.
Probably younger than that, because I was 21 when I went in. I was the oldest cat. So he might have been 19 or 20. And he was telling me that he was taught all of these things. What do you think he was taught that? He was taught that at school and in his home. And there was nothing to counter it. So even though these things happened a while ago, we still have to enlighten people to the real history. You know why Germany still has a large racist community there, but their government doesn't deny what they did. Our government still denies slavery until they want to use it as a weapon. Ted Cruz cannot believe slavery was that bad if he's using it like this. Ted Cruz is brilliant. He's intelligent, but he's an idiot because he uses his intelligence to tell intentional lies. That man knows he's lying about what he does. what he's talking about. And that is why I think critical race theory is important, but I don't think it should be hijacked by any of these side movements, like feminism. I think that it has to be taught as its own thing, and don't bring all these other slants into it, because then you have all these fights coming from the right. The right is not being honest about this, and it's terrible, because most people are like Nemo. They just don't know. It's not that they don't want to know. They just don't know. And Nemo has a better excuse than the people who grew up here who don't know.
Yeah.
And this is why I think that critical race theory is important.
Personally, this, like I said, this is is very
Absolutely.
knowledgeable for me. So, like I said, it's not that I don't want to know. It's just the information. Just moving into this country, I was fortunate enough to go to high school, so I was able to learn some stuff. But apparently, not all the facts or all the information that needed to know. I was just given the information that I know about, and that's all I know. So I just ran with it. So you guys definitely make a good point. Hopefully our audience will be watching. If they have any questions, hey, send us, write us. We got Nas, can answer any of your questions. So this is great, especially for guys like me.
Any final words, gentlemen, before we move on to another topic here?
I'll say this real quick. Critical race theory would also show us the history of the Jews in America, because everybody looks at the Jews now like they run everything and they're evil people. There's a history of abuse of those people that has to be discussed from a realistic position. I just wanted to put that out there because we have Mitch on our show.
And I agree. And people, when they repeat that and emphasize that stereotype, that they control all the banking, they control all of Hollywood, and they control all of this or all of that. Truth of the matter is, Jews are less than 1% of 8 billion people on this planet. It's one of the smallest segments of society. If they're in charge of anything, or if they are billionaires, it's because they had a financial backing or family members from hundreds of years ago. But in terms of that stereotype, I thank you for pointing that out. I agree. There's plenty others that are being treated just as poorly through their stereotypes and through being put through the ringer as far as the way they've been treated up through time. Something's got to change, folks.
Absolutely.
And I think these formats, the four of us talking about it and other people talking about it, are really the only way to get to all the people at some point. I hope that we just make a dent in this issue in our lifetimes. That's really all
I hope we
can
can
do.
talk more about it in the future moving forward.
All right, I just want to say one last thing before we sign off here. Listen, just let the truth out. Like, why is it so hard for people to just accept the truth? Like, listen, we have problems in this country. We've treated people poorly, and we still do to this day. Let's not act like it didn't happen. We have a history, and listen, I'm not saying that we can't heal, but we can't heal unless we talk about what the problem is. All right, let the truth out, and let the kids today decide on how to interpret. Let's not interpret for the kids. Just present the facts. All right, let the truth out, and let somebody interpret it for themselves. All right, gentlemen, listen, as always, good time. We'll see you guys in the next show. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Peace.